It's time for ProAm Predictions.
Hello and welcome back to ProAm Predictions. I am Paul O'D on the amateur side, and on the professional side this week we are joined by Ryan the Hulk Spillane. How are you doing today, Ryan?
Great.
Not too bad. A few weeks out from the fight. What is it, 7 weeks now? 6 weeks?
5 weeks
out.
So 5 weeks on Saturday. So Saturday, yeah. So
camp is going strong at the moment. You're flat out.
Almost out now. I'll be jumping into the Team Ireland trials in 2 weeks, and then I'm heading up to Dublin then for a week to help Johnny Walker and him helping me.
Very good. I see actually he was training up in Tullamore this week with a few of the light heavyweights.
There's another Brazilian up there, and then you have Charlie Ward and you have all those big guys like Will Flurry and all them we'll all be going to Dublin and doing a big camp then.
Nice. And of course the fact that you both have fights coming up benefits both of you to be doing your camps together.
Absolutely.
Very good. It's harder to get those little guys around Cork, or those bigger guys around Cork. It's all the little guys. Yeah, so we are going to talk a little bit about last week's fights. You were saying you kind of saw some of it. Yeah,
I didn't really watch them. Back working nights, and I was so couldn't really watch them. But I was absolutely disgusted to see Nate Diaz almost rock Edwards, have him literally on the back foot, and then decide to point at him and slap him.
It was insane.
How slow do you have to be? I know Diaz is slow, but he's not that slow,
But I genuinely believe he didn't think he was rocked. I thought he would just, the way Nate Diaz, if he stings someone, he points. That's his thing. I don't think he thought he was as rocked as he was. And then the moment had kind of passed. Edwards was just starting to find his feet again. But he 100% should have finished him in the last minute.
That was the end of the fight.
And if you think about it, you look at Edwards knowing the position he's in. So he keeps saying it's a 9-fight win streak, which it's not, because he had the no contest in the middle. Yeah. You have, obviously, the 8 fights, there was a dispute all along whether he should have been fighting for the belt after those 8 fights. Then you have a no contest. And now you have this against Nate, where people are coming out of it saying Nate should have finished the fight. Yeah. I don't think it's done Leon any favours. Do you think he still will get next for Usman?
No. I think Wonderboy's next, definitely.
So you think the winner of Burns and...
Yeah. I think if Burns wins, Burns still doesn't get it, because Burns got... I think Wonderboy is definitely in... Yeah, because then your problem then is if Burns wins, you can't have Burns fight him again. Yeah.
Maybe Edwards gets it if Burns picks up the victory. Yeah.
It's really, he can't have Burns fight him again, because Usman would just beat him well again.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. That welterweight division, you got to find someone that's going to go in and take on. And I don't think Edwards is the guy. I think Edwards is a similar version to what Usman has been. Handling.
He'll put it up to him, It's that style. It's the style that Wonderboy brings will be the biggest test to Usman. It's that striking, it's that karate style. Because Usman likes that little pecky jab. He likes hitting that. That won't work on Wonderboy. He'll have to literally change his whole game. And I fully believe he will, and he will put it up. But I think if anyone is going to beat him, it will be Wonderboy. There's no one else in the top 5 that will come near it.
There's a guy that's ranked number 15 though. I say it every week. He's the next one coming up, and I'm not going hitting the button on myself.
Go on, hit the button.
Mr. Hamzat Chimaev, I don't even know which one it is. Mr. Hamzat Chimaev, I think, is still going to be his biggest problem when he gets there.
When he comes back fighting.
Yeah, he still has to fight, I'll give you that. But there's a couple of interesting fights happening at welterweight. But look, Edwards did put on a Muay Thai clinic for 4 rounds.
Oh yeah, beautiful fight.
And they started the 5th round. But there wasn't enough in the sense, he's taking on a guy that's been out of the sport and in and out of the sport, and he couldn't put him away. And I know everyone says Nate Diaz is one of the hardest guys to put away, but if you're putting a beating on a guy for 4.5 rounds and he nearly wins the fight at the end, I don't think it's doing especially when you're going up against someone who's as dominating as Usman, it's just not doing you any favours.
But then you have to look at Edwards' inactivity as well, and look at all the pull-outs he's had and all that. He's had a really unlucky time. There was a stage there where he was pulled from the rankings and everyone thought he was cut. Yeah, that shit plays with you. If you're getting texts off all your buddies being you're cut from you're off the rankings. That kind of shit plays with you. And ring rust is a thing. Everyone says, oh, it's not but it is. You can perfectly use Jones' example when he came back and fought OSP.
He looked like shit.
I think a few more fights for I think maybe one more fight for Edwards. I don't know who you give him though. Do you give him
There's nobody up there. It's got to be someone in the ilk of a Burns.
Masvidal.
But Masvidal, that's the Nate Diaz fight all over again. I'm just not on board with it. It's the lads have had their run at the top now. They've made it entertaining. They need to step away, maybe fight each other again for the BMF or something. But they're not contenders at the top division. This has been proven.
If Hamzat kind of comes out of his whole thing, do you think that's a fight to give him?
Hamzat needs to beat someone in the top 10. Then that could be a fight. 100%.
But then at that stage, then there could be a whole new champion, and then the dynamic changes. Then if Wonderboy is in the champion, then
I still think Hamzat is the biggest problem for all of them.
But he just needs a fight, and he just needs to get back into it.
100%. We also had 2 titles on the line. You had in the flyweights, you had Davison Figueiredo took on the baby assassin Brandon Moreno, and I know there's a lot being made of the story about Brandon Moreno and the fact that
it's an amazing story though.
But look, and I'm not trying to knock the story and his story, whatever. But the fact that he got cuffed from the UFC wasn't because he was doing shit and they didn't think he was good enough for the UFC. It was because they didn't see a future for the flyweight division. Yeah. But at the same time, for his confidence, he left thinking, right, there's no future in the UFC. He went away, picked up a couple of victories, came back to the UFC and made this incredible run. I don't think Davison Figueiredo, like, there's a lot being made of the fact that the weight cut was an issue. That's been an issue in the past, whatever.
Can't use no excuse when it's a constant thing. Like, that's not an excuse. That's a problem with you, know.
Yeah, 100%. Oh no, like, it is an excuse in the sense that I can understand that's why he didn't perform, but that's on him. Yeah, no, fully. It's on nobody else. But Brandon Moreno looked absolutely sensational. He looks like a problem. Like, I imagine the next fight up, they're talking about Davison 3. I don't see them making that fight. No. I think Askarov is next up. Those guys have already fought to a draw before. Yeah. I think that is an incredible next matchup for the flyweight division.
excitement back to the flyweight division, because there hasn't really been there since, Cejudo retired and all that, like, and you had Mighty Mouse before that, like there's been some dominant champions of flyweight division. Like, I don't understand why Dana was kind of on the verge of cutting the whole, like, it's a weird one, like. So
myself and Liam talked about this, and we talked about when Demetrius Johnson left, was it bad for the UFC? Was it the right move? They brought over Ben Askren. Ben Askren, look, we saw the calamity that has turned into. Yeah. But I still think it was the correct move, because that division was on its knees. There was no interest. Yeah. As big a star as Demetrius Johnson should have been, he wasn't, because there was no legit contenders. The minute he left, a wave came through. My question is, imagine bringing Demetrius Johnson back into that division now with the killers that are there. Imagine even him and Henry Cejudo coming back into that division. I don't think either has a clear run at the title or has an easy night.
I think Cejudo still beats top 5 guys there. Like,
I can see him beating the top 5 guys there, but I don't see him picking up the belt easy then defending it and not looking like there's a contender. No. I think every night out, you're kind of lucky at them and kind of going, this could be the guy. Like, you look at Askarov in his last one, that guy looks invincible.
Last fight was Benitez, no?
Gabriel Benitez, yeah, as far as I know.
Joe, no. Was he not still fight?
Benavidez.
Yeah, Joe Benavidez,
yes.
He put a battering on him.
A beating.
That looked embarrassing.
Yeah, and he's one of 4 or 5 guys in that division right now that are absolutely on fire.
And isn't he deaf in one ear, or?
Jeez, I don't know. Didn't hear that.
I think he is, because he competed in. I heard this somewhere now, but I think he competed in, like, the Special Olympics, because he's deaf in one ear.
Fuck off.
He was I think he's deaf in one ear because he competed in the Sambo, because Khabib put up something about him and being like, this fella's next champion. I think now, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure he is deaf in one ear.
That's fucking insane. Yeah. And you'd imagine what difference does that make. But even listening to your cornermen, everything.
Hearing movements and stuff, like, like that shit helps,
Yeah, massively. In the main event, we had Israel Adesanya defended his belt against Marvin Vettori. And I'm sorry, I called this one. There was a lot of people telling me and there was a load of people online saying that Marvin Vettori had a chance in this one.
Really?
No. Yeah, for some reason. And the line was pretty close on it towards the end. I couldn't see it. I don't think...
No.
At middleweight, you see, people were basing this off what Jan Blachowicz did to Izzy. And size is a factor. At the end of the day, it has to be. When Izzy is at middleweight, he's fought guys that are better everywhere than Marvin Vettori for how long? And I suppose since the Marvin Vettori first fight, which seemed like a bit of a challenge. But he's looked incredible since then. He's looked unstoppable at 185 pound. I didn't put any credence in the fact that Marvin Vettori had any chance.
No, not at all. Like it's another embarrassing fight where, you know, when he gets comfortable, he starts doing the embarrassing things, like he grabs his arse and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
He does embarrassing things, and when he does that, then you know the fight's over. Like he did the same against Paulo Costa when he was like, really embarrassing him. You didn't see that when he fought Jan because he was under pressure, you know.
Yeah.
But when he starts getting comfortable,
because he was in a fight.
Yeah, when he gets uncomfortable, he does that kind of shit. Like, who's next? Is it Whittaker?
Has to be. 100% has to be Whittaker. But
it's the same fight again.
Yeah, I genuinely believe Robert Whittaker is the best 185-pound fighter in the world, not named Adesanya.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he's
killer.
Clear by a mile, clear number 2. But again, I think there's a bit of a gap.
If Izzy disappeared, like, he would be the interim champion, and he would hold until he fights Izzy again.
100%, yeah. In my opinion as well, I agree. What did you make of Marvin Vettori in between rounds, arguing with his cornerman that he'd won the rounds? And after the fight, even telling Izzy that he thought he won the fight.
This is the thing. Like, there's a few fighters that I know that whenever they fight, they believe that the fight is completely one-sided, and you'll always see it like IMAF tournaments and all that. People complaining about fights, and like it's a thing where like your brain just like you've literally, it's like beer goggles. You view the fight from a different view. You fully believe it. In his head, he fully believed it won, you know. But that's just down to him. That's just down to his mentality, you know. He fully like when he was watching the fight. I think if you're doing that in between rounds, that's shit. Like you should always be kind of on the side that you're losing or it's close, because then you're going to fight. If you're, let's say, if you're 3 rounds up in your head, you're going to coast the last 2 rounds, which is the rounds you need to compete
or at least try and play safe to a certain degree.
You should be in round 4 and 5. That's where you should pulling off the shit like that's dangerous and like can get you a win, but is risky. You're not doing the risky stuff in the first 3 fights. To me, that's just that's kind of a mental thing that he needs to sort out, you know. Because if he's going to fights thinking he's winning them, that's very detrimental to you, like, you know.
But not just that. Okay, so he came out of the first round, believed he won the round. His cornerman had to convince him that he lost the round. He was still shaking his head.
Yeah,
that to me, you're looking at a guy you're just deluded. Then
you're fighting your team, like.
Yeah, it's absolutely bananas. I don't know. Look, I don't know where Vettori goes from here, because
does he get Till?
But there's so many fucking killers up there. I just don't like any of those fights for him. I think he got, I'm not going to say he got an easy run to the title, but I think he jumped the queue a little bit because
he was lucky.
Because they had the close fight back in, and that was, let's not forget, that was Adesanya's second fight ever in the UFC.
But he was also lucky just in the placement of fights. He's had like not easy fights, but good fights for him.
Yeah, and the timing of them, other people being booked, and he kind of just skipped ahead a few.
It was a lovely run for him. And look, it could have been a great run. It could have been another underdog story. Joe, there's like, look at the 3 champions: light heavyweight, lightweight, and flyweight are all underdogs. That's kind of the running team right now. Could be Vettori, but it's not. Izzy's just a dominant champion.
So we've said it's Whittaker next for Izzy.
Yeah,
kind of has to be.
Yeah.
If he beats Whittaker, what do you do with that division? I know, fair enough, you could argue Till. There's a style matchup there, and the fact that 2 very different strikers. You got Muay Thai against.
It's not even a style matchup. It's more of a selling point, because it's an easy fight sell. Like Till Instagram alone will sell a fight.
100%.
And then you put 2 of them in press conferences. You do fucking interviews with the 2 of them. It sells that fight. Does Till beat Izzy though? No, not at all.
It's a tough sell. It's a very tough, as a competitive fight, it's a tough sell. I'm not saying for a second that they won't sell it, because, as you said, both lads will. But
in the top 10, there's no guy there that really screams, you know?
Yeah, that they're looking like a future champion. Yeah, it's a tough one. I think that 85 division is going to very quickly become, like we talked about, the flyweight division. The only difference, of course, is that Adesanya is a star, but there was always that kind of, if he moved up, what could he do?
And then that happened.
But that's been squashed now.
Does he move up again though? Does he try it again?
I would say
no.
Wait till you're a little bit older. Do it right. Put on the weight.
Yeah.
This crack of showing up at a 205-pound fight at 190-pound or 195-pound. I know he came in at 201.
Yeah.
But he didn't cut anything.
Holding the pizza and crack and all that, like, you know. Yeah.
You're going to need to be the same size as these guys. And it's not like he's not 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah.
He has all the attributes, just didn't put on the weight.
If he spent a year or 2 just actually putting on size and made that his goal, yeah, he'd be able to do it, like
100%. But I think that's a ways down the line. I can't see that happening anytime in the very near future. We do need to move on to this week's cards and give this week's upcoming card and give some predictions. So in the main event this week, we have the Korean Zombie Chan Sung Jung against Dan 50k Ige, and I absolutely love this fight. You have Chan Sung Jung, who's coming off the loss to Ortega, and that was a beatdown. He took a lot of punches in that fight. It was kind of hard to watch at times for a guy, and we call him the Korean Zombie, but you still don't want to see a guy getting a beating that bad. And then on the other side, you have Tucker, who's looked phenomenal, with the exception of the loss to Cater. He has the win over Tucker in his last one, and before the loss to Cater, he was on a 6-fight win streak. Wins over Barboza, Bektik. What I think here is, like you were touching on before, the fact that Dan Ige does have that power double, and he's a black belt on the mat. But I think if you look at their styles throughout the UFC so far, both guys are headhunters. Like, they both like to strike, and they both like to just go for the head. That's their whole game. Dan Ige has landed 67% of his strikes on his opponent's head. Chan Sung Jung is 79% on his opponent's head. And Chan Sung Jung has an 87% finish rate. Dan Ige 60% finish rate. But the flip side of that is that Dan Ige has never been finished. Now, we have seen Chan Sung Jung finished 3 times, but that's to Aldo, when Aldo was Aldo.
Yeah, prime Aldo.
We saw him against that last second finish to Yair with the upwards elbow, which is a freak knockout.
Yeah.
And then before his time in the UFC, he got knocked out to George Roop. What I find, the one point I have very interesting here is that Chan Sung Jung has 9 fights in the UFC since 2011.
He was military service, wasn't it?
Military service for 2 years of him, great.
It was 2017 he came back, wasn't it?
That's it, yeah. After nearly 3 years away from at the UFC. No, he's looked good. He's had some great wins against Edgar and Moicano since he's come back. But Dan Ige has the same amount of fights since 2018 in the UFC. Do you think that plays a big factor?
Yeah and no. Like, you're going to fight, and the style he has, he's a brawler. Like, he goes in there and swings, like, so it means you're taking shots as well. Like, cumulatively that's building up, and then you start getting, as Connor always says, you have a weak chin and all that. You start developing a weak chin.
Yeah,
that comes into play as well. But then you have the experience of fights. You're getting fights. You're always active, and being active is great. Like, but then his style doesn't suit the activity, but yeah, it's definitely going to be in a fucking exciting fight.
This for me, I've said this a couple of times now. I always try and predict the fight of the night. This is on this card. This is 100% fight of the night for me. But I think it could be, if we get the fight I'm expecting, it could 100% be a contender for fight of the year.
Yeah.
And that's if it goes to a decision, because we've touched on the fact that both guys have massive finishing records. For me, I think Dan Ige takes it. I think he's been more active. He hasn't fought the same level for the same amount of time as Chan Sung Jung, but he's shown in the last few fights, in the last 4 fights, he can compete against the top in the world. I think he takes a decision in an absolute war. I think this is going to be one of a fight that's absolutely not to be missed.
I'll agree with you, but I'm thinking knockout. I think he puts him away. I don't see this fight going distance, just because it's going to be one of those fights where you're literally on the edge of the seat and you're literally like watching it, knowing that anyone, like, it's like watching the heavyweights. Like, any of the shots they throw is going to be powerful, and it's going to be explosive. It's going to be dangerous. And I think it's either going to be one of them lands and knocks out, or because it's going to be a boring fight. It's going to be a fight where they're, it could be example of when Yoel Romero fought
Paulo Costa.
Yeah, the bull. Or even when Izzy fought Yoel. It was a very boring fight because they were scared. It could be something like that. I don't think they will be with these lads. I think these lads are, as you said, headhunters. Yeah. They're going to go in there and they're literally going to just look for a fucking a big shot. Yeah. But I see it being a knockout, and I seen Dan putting him away. Yeah.
And the one side to the, at 145 pound, it's all about volume, and these guys are 2 volume strikers.
Yeah.
And both rely on their chins. That's the reason I think it's going to be such a good fight, is that both guys are confident in the chin.
Like, they can take a good dig. Like,
Chan Sung Jung is called the Korean Zombie for a reason, and Dan Ige is the Hawaiian tough. There's no stopping him coming forward, and he has never been stopped in the MMA. If there's one guy that can do it, though, it is the Korean Zombie. So it is definitely one to be missed.
It's an exciting fight. Like we're both picking Dan, but it could go either way. Like it could literally be just John gets the shot in and it's just it's over. You know?
Yeah. Do you think if Korean Zombie took Dan Ige down, we know about Ige's wrestling, we know about his offensive jiu-jitsu, but do you think the correct way for Korean Zombie to do this is mix it up and actually take Ige down himself?
No.
Not the right route.
He needs to stay standing.
Yeah.
And I think the two of them won't shoot for takedowns because it'll be an ego fight. The two of them are gonna, they're gonna be like, because they both have that they both have that kind of reputation of being that hard to take a shot,
tough to take out. So
like they both want to be that person like to knock him out. Like John's gonna go in there and be like, I'm gonna be the fella to finish Dan. You know?
Yeah.
Like that's gonna be straight away in his head. He wants to finish him.
Yeah, 100%. So we're both on Ige in that one. In the co-main event, we have Alexei Oleinik versus Sergei Spivak, two big boys. Alexei Oleinik making his 76th walk to the cage in MMA, which is absurd at heavyweight. I just want to repeat that. At heavyweight, it is fucking absurd to have 76 fights.
And to have a really good record as well. It's only 15 losses, which anyone else, 15 losses is terrible. Yeah. But he has fucking...
almost 60 victories,
you know, one no contest. Like, that's incredible, like.
Yeah, and this is the thing, it seems like a massive disparity because Sergei Spivak is only 12-2, 3-2 in the UFC, and he's coming in against a guy with all this experience. But the other side of that is, of course, Oleinik is coming off 2-fight losing streak. He's had a bit of a rough run, and Sergei Spivak is on a 2-fight win streak. Wins over Carlos Felipe and Jared Vanderaa. Both came in, and obviously Carlos Felipe, we've seen what he can do. If he touches you, you're in trouble. He's been rocking a lot of people in his run in the UFC. And Jared Vanderaa, obviously that was his debut. He didn't look good, but we've seen him since, and he did look phenomenal in his last outing. Oleinik has had kind of you look at some of the guys that he's taken on since he's been in there. He's only 14 fights, and he's a rocky record, 8-6. But he's taken on the best in the world since he's been in there. The one thing I would worry about here is the fact that Oleinik has lost his last 5 fights by KO. And we know Spivak does have power, but I think Spivak tries to rely on what he's good at, which is the grappling and the wrestling.
It's that Ezekiel choke is what he relies on more than anything.
Yeah, but Spivak can just say that's his game. He likes to take you down ground and pound and try and work for a submission. I think if he does that, Oleinik gets the submission, and that's what I'm punting on. Spivak having the wrong game plan and Oleinik playing into that and pulling off an Ezekiel or a rear naked choke or some form of a choke. Like if you look at it, he has 59 wins, 46 of them are by submission, 33 by choke, and 12 Ezekiel chokes. One from when he was mounted himself,
there was a mounted,
which is fucking insane.
I'm right to say they both fought on the same card against different people. It was that Chris Dawkins fight. Didn't Spivak win that same card? I'm thinking, no?
Spivak against Vanderaa way down the card. That was actually the opener that night.
And
the same
Tom
card.
Aspinall fought
Arden Arlovsky.
Arlovsky. That there were 3 of them fought on that card. I'm going to go completely against that, and I'm saying Spivak wins. I think when I watched Oleinik fight that last fight, and he went in there and he loves pulling guard. Yeah. But like at heavyweight, that's very dodgy. You know, like. I know for myself because I've pulled guard in a few fights, so I know how dangerous that is. Yeah. But I think that mentality of going in and bringing someone on top of you instead of you you're going backwards at the takedown instead of going forwards. Yeah. That's very dangerous, and especially when you have a big guy on top of you and they fall, it's very hard to move him. But then it's jiu-jitsu he's a very skilled jiu-jitsu fighter, so that comes into play as well. But I think Spivak wins this. I think he wins by decision.
Yeah, the one point I didn't make is that if Spivak is on top, it's not like a lot of the opponents that Oleinik has been able to pull guard against. Spivak will do damage on top if he's allowed to do it. It's definitely an interesting one. We're split on that one, but and the only reason I'm going with Oleinik is I'm punting on it. I think Spivak hasn't he's only lost. He has a win over Taito Avasa, who's up there now. But if you look at his 2 losses so far, Tibora and Harris, it's that kind of once he's reached that upper echelon. I think Oleinik will just be able to kind of outclass him in this one just based on experience.
But it's a nice fight for Spivak then to push into the rankings as well, push
100%
top 15
Yeah, and Oleinik was right there up until those 2 losses, so he's a guy that
it's a nice test.
100% with a couple of wins there, he's right there as well. Very interesting one in the 135-pound division. Next, you have Marlon Cheeto Vera is taking on Davy Grant. We know a lot about Davy Grant coming over from the UK. Guys looked sensational of late. 3-fight win streak against Martinez, Day, Popov, and 2 KOs in his last 2. He's going against Chito Vera, who's hangs his hat on the fact that he's never been finished. He's the loss to Aldo in his last one, but the big win over O'Malley before that. And that was kind of his coming out party, Chito Vera, but it was under acrimonious circumstances in the fact that more O'Malley lost the fight and he got injured. Of course, it was due to the leg kick, but O'Malley kind of gave up on that one, in my opinion, and Chito Vera picked up the win. But you look at his victories, he's the victory over Aldo and Song Yadong, who are 2 top guys in the 135-pound division. He's a legitimate 135-pound ranked fighter. But I think Davy Grant has the momentum. I think he's looked absolutely sensational.
Ever since on Tough, he was just kind of one of the fighters that were just kind of there. Now his striking is looking incredible. And I've been talking to one of his coaches, Alex Sunderland, and all that. And Alex has been telling me that he's been going and sparred boxers and beating boxers well, like professional boxers. His striking is looking incredible right now.
It looks better every single time we've seen him in the last 4 or 5 outings.
But then Vera is a really good striker as well. So then it comes at that point too. I think Davy Grant wins it. He's a very unorthodox kind of striking. Like the shots he throws, like if you try replicating yourself, you just feel awkward. Like I tried to do the shot he finished his last fight with, the body shot, and it feels awkward. It's not like a normal. It's like not normal at all. But it works for him, and it's a killer.
And his jab is phenomenal as well.
Absolutely phenomenal.
He works very well behind that jab.
Really good striker.
Do you think Davy Grant could finish Marlon Vera, become the first man to do so? There was a lot of talk about O'Malley at the time, if he could become the first person to finish Chito Vera.
I think if anyone can do it, I think it's Davy. I think the Davy we're seeing right now is a fucking incredible Davy.
And we know the power is there to do it.
Absolutely. So I think if someone's going to do it, it could be him. Could be a nice little bet as well.
Very good. I do have a by decision.
But I would say the same as well. But it could, if anyone can do it, I think it can be him.
Yep, 100%. In the next one up, we have Julian Juicy J Arosa taking on Sung Woo Choi. Sung Woo Choi is a bit of an unknown. He's 2-2 in the UFC so far. He has wins over Zalal and Mokhtarian in his last 2, which is impressive. They're 2. They're not ranked guys, but they were 2. Especially
Sumo was a tough dude. Really tough. Came from New Zealand, very tough dude. Him and his brother were fucking very tough.
And Yusuf Zalal as well, up until that fight, was kind of tipped to be a contender in that division.
But then Julian then came from Tough, was on the Conor Tough series, tough dude.
But here's I have an issue with Julian Rosa.
Okay. Let it go.
I don't think he was that impressive on Tough.
No, not at all.
And he kind of eked out a couple of victories, and then he got sparked by the GOAT, of course, just Artem Lobov. And he's had this back and forth relationship with the UFC since. Obviously, after that, he got the contract to post Tough. He went 1-1, got caught. He came back 0-3, got caught, and he's back again. Now, to be fair to him, he's on a 2-fight win streak in the UFC, and they're against relatively good opponents. Sean Woodson in the first one, but Nate Landwehr was a contender, and he's beaten him in his most recently one. He does have 4 KO losses on his record, and this is what caught my attention. The guy is susceptible, and he's one of those tall guys, and he tends to lean back with his chin up in the air. What we know of Sung Woo Choi is he has 5 KO victories in his 9 wins, and we know he has power in his hands. I think Choi picks up what would be deemed as an upset victory here. They're both on win streaks, but I think Choi is the underdog coming into this, and I think Choi picks up a KO victory.
You changed and thought you were going to go with Juicy J, no?
No. I said I have an issue with Juicy J. I don't.
I thought in a post-fight little chat there you picked Juicy J, no?
Absolutely not. No.
Oh no. Okay.
It's not that I have an issue with Juicy J. I just don't think that there's been a lot of hype around him with coming back and different things, and I know it's more the story, but they're saying he's this guy that never reached his potential. I don't see that. I don't see the potential in him that he's supposed to have reached.
No, I think at this point in his career, if you even look at it, he's been around 25 wins.
Yeah.
At that point, you should be up there. You know. Yeah. I know 25 wins, and then we were talking about Alexei Oleinik, and he's ranked 14.
Yeah.
Heavyweights are a bit different. I think at 25 wins, and the lower categories, you should be up there. You know, you should be somewhat close, top 10, top 5. You know, I think definitely his time is up. I think he'll be cut from the UFC soon enough again.
Yeah, Look, he's on a 3-fight win streak or 3-fight win streak, so it's not going to be any time in his next couple of fights.
Yeah.
But I can't see him sticking around for long this time either.
He could lose fight, and then it could just be like you're your cannon fodder.
If you look at his overall record, it's 3-4 as we stand.
Yeah.
Any loss could do it, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do want to talk about, while we're on Julian Rosa, the fight against Paddy Pimblett as well.
Yeah.
We go back to the Cage Warriors. They brought him over as this, he was on tough, he was the American.
Wasn't it a thing that like Paddy's opponent like pulled out and he stepped in a short notice?
Yeah.
It was like I think it was like a 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but it was a big thing because they were like, they got this American fighter over and all that crack.
Yeah, and Julian, to be fair to him, put a beating on Paddy. Paddy looked awful in that fight, but Paddy still got the victory, and that's the one where, if you remember, Paddy puked blood as they were calling him as the winner. It was an absolute travesty of a decision. Julian Rosa won 30-27 in my opinion. But that was the only time that I've seen Julian Rosa in the last, maybe, I suppose, 5 or 6 years since Tough, that I went, all right, this is a guy that actually showed up on short notice and looked somewhat impressive against, we know Paddy is a contender. Yeah. But I think that was more the fact that Paddy was just completely off that night.
Pretty sure that fight was at lightweight as well.
Yeah, it was. And
they're fighting at featherweight.
Yeah. So and like, Paddy's moved down to featherweight since as well. I just don't think Paddy was taking it very seriously at the time.
Paddy signed for lightweight, no?
No, he signed to fight a featherweight, as far as I know. Yeah, he was in the fan rankings at featherweight. So
really,
that's one they might run back in the UFC. Imagine that.
I was because as you're talking about there, I was thinking of it, but then like, would you do it like?
I mean, if you're Julian Rosa, you want that fight.
Yeah.
This is a guy you've beaten, and you know in your heart and soul you've beaten.
It's a good sell for the UFC as well.
And he's been signed as this big prospect coming out of the UK. You went over to his backyard and got a decision stole off you. Fight him in America and see what happens.
Yeah, could be a nice little sell. If Rosa wins this fight, do you give him a new signing? You don't really, like, you give him someone a bit up there.
The way they're talking about Paddy is they want to put him right in there and test where he's at. This is a guy he's fought already, and a guy that
sink or swim kind of stuff.
Yeah, like, 100. I'm all for that fight.
Yeah,
literally, like if
that's nice. That's a really nice fight there now.
If Rosa is going to be sticking around and win or lose this one, I think if you want to sell that guy, that they're the fights you got to make, because they're like he's not a guy that's going to be ranked top 15 in my opinion. He's not going to get there. But there are a few fights.
Is this ProAm or is this Matchmakers? Jesus,
anybody, I never switch off. I've been making matches all the time. UFC need to give me a call. We will move on to the last two fights on the main card. You have Wellington Turman taking on Bruno Silva, who's making his UFC debut in this one. Wellington Turman, he's 1-2 in the promotion. He has the vicious loss to Andrew Sanchez in his last one, but Andrew Sanchez is no joke. He has the KO win over Marcus Perez. Now, Marcus Perez, we know him from the Joker face, you know, the guy with the weigh-ins.
Yeah.
But Marcus Perez, his fighting record, he either shows up or he doesn't. He gets a KO victory or loses by KO. And he also has a loss to Carl Roberson in his debut. Before the UFC, he was a finisher, 3 KOs, 6 subs, but he just hasn't looked the part since he's got there. I don't put too much emphasis on the victory over Perez. And the guy they're just after signing, Bruno Silva, 19-6. He's fought some tough guys. He's on a 4-fight win streak, all by KO, and one of them over Alexander Shlemenko, who was a Bellator fighter for a long time and a legit contender there. I think this kid is coming over. He has 8 KOs in his last 10 victories, and I think he's coming out. He's going to be the real deal. I can see Bruno Silva picking up a KO victory on his debut here over Wellington Turman.
I'm going to completely honest, Joe, I haven't a clue who the two of them are. But just from what you're saying, I'd agree with you. The young dog comes in and wins, like anything. Like, it's
tough when you have a guy as well that it's kind of apparent that he's not quite at the level. Yeah, but he's picked up a victory and he's picked up a KO victory, so he's going to be there a while.
A lucky kind of one, like, you know, one you can't cut. You're like, oh, this fella won. I just can't cut him right now.
So you match him against the guy who it seems like it's a fair match because he's coming in on his debut, but
you're putting him.
I have a feeling the promotion know exactly what's going on here.
They're setting up Bruno to be like a new kind of superstar, so they're building him up nicely. Like
100%. I think Bruno is going to come in and get a massive KO,
feeding him a nice fight. Like,
I never got your pick on Sung Woo Choi and Julian Rosa either.
Oh yeah, no, I was going with you. I was going Choi as well.
Choi as well, yeah.
But I'm going to say Choi by knockout.
Choi by knockout, yeah. 100%. Last fight on the main card, we have the return of the immortal Matt Brown. He is taking on Dhiego Lima, and this is one for the oldies. These boys, I feel like they've been around for absolutely fucking forever.
Another tough competitor on this.
Both of them actually came out of tough.
Jesus Christ.
Matt Brown was the tough 7 winner.
Yeah, fuck me, forget that. And then I think Julian was like 16 or 15, I think, maybe.
He fought on 19 and he was the runner-up, but then he fought on 25 as well.
That was the redemption.
Reunion.
Yeah.
And he was the runner-up, of course, and that's a twice finalist. He never won it.
That's 1. That's 2. 3. 4 tough competitors.
Yeah, and there's a couple of Dana White Contender Series guys on there as well. That seems to be the pattern going forward. They seem to be getting rid of a lot of the senior guys.
Yeah.
And looking for the guys that are coming in on these 4 or 5 contracts.
The less money guys.
Exactly, yeah.
I won't talk about it.
The Dhiego Lima, look, his record overall in the UFC is 4-6. He was 1-3 the first time, got caught. He's 3-3 now again, and it's not looking great for him. He was obviously just off the loss to Bilal Muhammad, but let's be fair, Bilal has looked impressive of late. And before that, he did have the 3-fight win streak over Jamal Laprise and McGee, but none of them stand out impressive, with the exception maybe of Court McGee is a tough fighter.
You also talk about Lima and his brother losing at the weekend, like, and that could be a big thing on the back of my mind, like, you know.
100%.
Brother losing a big title, you know.
It's got to play a factor.
Absolutely.
I don't care what anyone says, because his whole camp and everything that was going around his household, everything last week, just over a week ago, was going to be somber, and it's going to be
absolutely
a negative kind of.
You had the whole vibes going into fight week being like, you're fighting this week, I'm fighting next week, you know, great vibes and all that, and then you lose, you know. It's the same way like when you're fighting over a tournament and all that, like, and one of your teammates loses and comes back to the dressing room, and it plays a buzz on the room straight away, and you have to bang that out, like. But this I
imagine it's tough to pick yourself up after that, after seeing a teammate lose.
It's very tough, like, and especially when you're fighting at those high ranks, like, and those, like, the big stakes, like, I think that plays a big factor.
100%. And of course, look, Matt Brown, we know he's on the 2-fight losing streak, but it was the loss to Condit, which was that back and forth kind of war, but it was a suitable matchup considering both of their age. You could say maybe the same about this one. But before that, then there was the loss to Beza, and what he's being put in there with Miguel Beza for, I cannot understand. You've got a young killer against.
That's back to their thing about putting the young dog against the old dog kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's bananas. Those two guys just never should have been matched. Look, Brown is he's still kind of relevant in that division to a certain extent. He has some wins there recently, so I'm not saying that the guy should just be cut or whatever, but I think if he loses this one to a Dhiego Lima who's also aged, coming off the Condit loss, it'd be 3 in a row. I don't see where the promotion go after this one with Matt Brown. I think it's a tough sell to book him another fight after that one. Dhiego Lima, similarly, if he picks up a victory and goes 4-7 overall, or if he loses and he goes 4-7 overall in the UFC, it's a tough sell to book him another fight.
Yeah.
What do you do with these guys after?
Do you think they're close to retirement? Do you think they're close to calling it quits?
I think both guys are. Like, do
you think Liam loses this fight?
Yeah.
Retires?
Well, I don't know about retiring, but I think certainly whoever loses this fight should be arguably cut.
Yeah.
Liam always says when a guy isn't competing for the title anymore or doesn't, like, has no
they're just there fighting for it, like
a paycheck. And when you start fighting for a paycheck that late on, when you've had 50 fights, and we talked about it before the podcast as well, Matt Brown has had 27 UFC fights. It's not like he's not been in there forever.
Yeah.
And his record is now 15-12. If he went to 15-13, let the guy go before that goes to a negative overall record in the UFC. Do you know what I mean? After so many legendary performances in the cage.
Like, he's never going to be a champion. Like, he's never.
Not at this stage, no.
So, like,
and a guy that was a perennial ranked fighter for how many years? Do you know, it's a tough. The other side, Dhiego Lima never quite got there, but again, I think he's hit his ceiling again in this division for the second time.
But I think Matt Brown was a bit higher than Lima. I think Lima never kind of broke that kind of upper echelon. Like
100%, yeah. And Matt Brown was a star. Matt Brown was like legit, and I know there'd probably be a bit more leeway granted to Matt Brown based on what he's done in his career.
Like, he has all the old school fans and all that. Like, you can't really cut a guy like that. Well, you can. Like, the UFC have been doing it, but like there's that kind of, like, he has a crowd still, Jimmy. He has that the fan base, like. And
we touched on it, Dana White Contender Series. The Ultimate Fighter is back again now.
Yeah.
It seems like these are the type of guys that are getting cut because they're probably on his 28th fight coming into this one in the UFC. He's not on 50-50.
Yeah, it's on a bit of money.
He's on a couple of $100,000 to show. Or, well, probably show and win.
Yeah.
The the UFC don't want those guys when they can't match them against top contenders.
It's about value. It's what we bring to the company. Like if the company don't value, they get rid of you.
100%. So it's a tough one either way. I think loser leaves town, but I think I don't know what you do with the winner either. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Like you can't give the winner a young dog because they'll get beaten.
Again, we saw what happened with Miguel Beza after Brown picked up 2 victories. We just look quickly at the rest of the card. Is there anything there that
you didn't pick your winner?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I do have Matt Brown by decision, but that's just based on the fact that I don't think Dhiego Lima has it in him to get to that level that's almost ranking. I just don't think he's that caliber.
I'll go against you and I'll go Lima by decision as well.
Yeah, I think either way, I don't think it's going to be the most exciting fight.
No,
for me.
Yeah, no.
So the card, we have the undercard. There's some interesting enough fights in there. Is there anything that stands out to you? I know you were mentioning Casey O'Neill there.
Yeah, Scottish, but fights in Australia. She fought on a few Eternal cards. Then she came through the UA Warriors, which is it's a recurrent thing right now. People coming from UA Warriors. It's a nice little feeder ground for fighters.
Yeah,
you have guys like Marion Ferret that fought last weekend. She's an IMAF champion as well. A few Russians have come through that way as well. Yeah. Like they're
there's a lot of IMAF competitors out that region, and they're all competing in UA Warriors.
Oh, absolutely.
It seems to be between that and Brave. Brave is maybe the slightly larger promotion of the two, but that region has some serious contenders.
And there's the money in Dubai as well, you know. So it's a nice little show building up there as well. But she's an absolute warrior. Her. Yeah, that'll be a really exciting fight.
This, by the way, is Procopio. This is by far and away her toughest test to date.
Yeah,
Procopio is as legit as they come, and this probably leads to a big ranked opponent next for whoever wins this one. Do you think it's maybe a little bit too soon for Casey?
No, I don't think so. I
think she's ready for.
She's a tough girl. I think this is the big step for her now. Like,
but do you think with a win here, she's ready for top kind of 5 to 8, 5 to 10? Or is that a bit soon? Because I think that's where this fight gets her, unfortunately.
Yeah, she's
because of the lack of depth.
She's 6-0. Like, that's young enough in a career. Then you look at the females; it's a bit different with the females. You know, like a 6-0 fella, like wouldn't be going up that high. Like,
no,
I think with a female, 6-0 is a lot of fights. So, yeah, I think she pushes up.
Yeah, and of course, like we know, look, that she had a very impressive win over Shayna Dobson in her debut.
Yeah.
And Dobson's a tough girl. To actually get Dobson out of there, it's damn impressive. But like I say, Lara Procopio is as legit as they come. I've kind of pinpointed Lara as a contender going forward, and I just think I don't like the matchmaking in this one purely because they're two contenders.
Molly McCann is a big win,
a huge win. And they're two contenders in a relatively light division. Look, I understand the matchmaking behind Miranda Maverick and Macy Barber because I think Macy Barber has maybe been found out a little bit and one of them will get a massive push from it. But these are two girls that haven't had those couple of losses that have set them back yet. So one of them's going to knock off another contender. It's a tricky one for me. I do see, I would probably pick Casey to win, but whoever wins this is going to have a huge fight next.
It's another fight that, like, what you do with the winner kind of thing, like.
Yeah, and it's for either. I think it might be a little bit too soon to be taking on the absolute top of that division.
Yeah, it's that. Once you get higher in the 125 division, like, it gets tough.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything else on that undercard that kind of stands out to you?
No, that. No.
The one there that does for me is the Chaos Williams takedown match, Semmelsberger. Just purely, we've seen Chaos in some phenomenal fights of late, and he does have that touch of death KO power.
Yeah.
So it's certainly one to keep an eye on.
That,
he could
be that light heavyweight Nick Nurmagomedov.
That's exactly how it's pronounced.
Yeah. I recognise his name, but I don't.
Nigumurano.
Who is he? Who did he fight recently? Go bang on to his topology there. I think he fought someone.
I know Alexei K. Moore is no joke. The guy he's taking on, another contender there. So coming off a loss in his UFC debut against Safarov.
I don't much think of someone else.
That's going to be a tough one taking on Alexei K. Moore. Both guys again, two young contenders.
Win by retirement.
Yeah.
Like quit. Jesus.
Yeah.
Rarely see that.
Rarely do you see that these days. Yeah. Back in the old days, it happened all the time, but not these days. So we are going to move on quickly to our bets of the week. And do you have anything picked out that you would say is your nailed on for this week?
I'm going to go with Choi, Grant, and Dan by KO. I'd say 3 of them all by KO.
So it's Choi, Grant, and Ige by KO.
Yeah. I think it's a nice little bet there now.
That is a tough one. There's going to be big odds on that.
You're going to play safe like you always do?
I'm gonna give it a go anyway, but I'm not picking method because I just think that the fights are a little bit too close.
Yeah, way too close. But that's why if you're a betting man, like
there's big odds available on that. Yeah, for sure.
Gotta go risky.
I have Oleinik, which obviously he's probably going to be the underdog in this, so there'll be decent enough odds in that. I do fancy a punt on Oleinik in this one. I'd take on Grant, and I would have Chaos Williams as well. So those 3 for me just to win, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I need to dig myself out a hole. I'm about 30 quid down for the year, so myself and Brian haven't been doing very well on the bets. Or to be fair, our predictions have been getting much better, but my betting has been absolutely woeful this year, so I do need to make a comeback on that. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I believe you're going to be joining us for the next few weeks.
We have a good one next week.
Yeah, we have Bellator and UFC again on next week. So
big one next week. And Bellator, you have the interim heavyweight belt, which I would be paying
a little bit of interest.
Tiny bit of interest. Yeah.
Especially, I mean, you look at that division now, and there's 2 guys currently ranked in the Bellator heavyweight division with 3-0 record. You have a fight coming up in 5 weeks. You're hoping to get one in Bellator before the end of the year.
There's nice 2 guys there to call out, and there's also the man that loves me.
Jake Hager. I see. I've been tweeting at him recently because he's gone back to wrestling. I'm like, what are you running away for?
I see you.
Just fight the man. Look, hopefully it happens. But there will be interest next week, and we'll have a good yammer about that. Pleasure having you on, and thank you for tuning in. Make sure and like and subscribe on YouTube, and follow us over on the MMA Opinion on Facebook. Thank you.